Hello, welcome to Sprint Zero, Episode 2. We're going to be looking at orchestrating prompts today, but we've also got our guest, Craig White. My name's John Russell. I'm joined by my co-partner, Crab in Crime, Mike Gowland. How are you? You all right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. I'm not too bad. Welcome to the second instalment of the podcast, which has many names as it has episodes. Welcome to Sprint Zero. We're going to be talking about orchestrating prompts and flows. But first of all, we're going to have a chat with a friend and colleague, Craig White. Craig is an ecosystem architect at A&S, a regular blogger on his platforms of power.net, and an all-round Lego fanatic. Craig, I hear you're known as the Phil Mitchell of the Power Platform space.
That's news to me. I thought I was the Grant Mitchell, not the Phil Mitchell. Get it right, lad. Come on.
Phil Mitchell's a bit shorter, isn't
he? Are you getting me back for my natural disasters gag?
Oh, you said it. How are you? You up, Craig? You good?
Oh, I'm very well, lads. I'm very well. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. It's good fun. I hope you made well today.
No worries.
Really pleased to have you on today, Craig. So, Craig, should we just jump straight into it? Do you want to talk about your journey into Power Platform? Do I understand right that you started sort of doing SharePoint at one point, or
I was. No, you didn't imagine that. I've definitely got my hands dirty with SharePoint in the past, but actually my way into tech started way before that. If we take it right back to my late teens, early 20s, I actually started in finance. And for years and years and years, my role was just putting invoices on systems, which with the greatest respect is an entry-level role in the finance department. So there's constantly keying in invoice numbers, due dates, and values, and that was it. I moved down from Leeds to Cornwall in 2007. I got a very similar job. But by that point, I was a bit sort of like annoyed and I wanted to do something else. I needed a challenge. And 6 months after starting this role in Cornwall, we got a new financial director. He had 50-minute one-to-ones with everyone. And I just said to him at the time, I was like, I just want to prove to myself that I can do something a bit more. I haven't got all the accountancy qualifications like AAT and stuff, but I just want to see if I can do something a bit different. I was lucky enough to get promoted shortly after that. And that's when I started knocking around with spreadsheets. And for that 5 or 6 years, I kind of carved out a really cool niche for myself of just doing some really awesome stuff with spreadsheets like graphs and whatever else, and dashboards. And I built a lot of my month-end processes with VB in the end. So like, I'd have all these old school accountants around me using those old calculators that used to like type the buttons. They used to print out the numbers for you. So they would take like 5 days doing their close downs. And I would get all my data in, open up a workbook, press a button, go out and have a cup of tea, come back, and my month end was done. All my accruals, all my journals, it's all just automated. So that's probably where my career in tech started. I then went into another part of the NHS where I did a lot of data warehousing with SQL Server and SQL Server reporting services and building cubes with SSAS analysis services and learning a bit of DAX, which is a bit minging. At the same time, we upgraded our SharePoint on-premise instance from 2010 to 2013. So that's when I started dabbling with SharePoint and looking at things like InfoPath and SharePoint Designer to automate some business processes. That led on to another role with the university where I was doing the same things but online. And obviously InfoPath and SharePoint Designer were the successors to Power Apps and what was at the time Flow. So I was in the right place at the right time when those two tools dropped to start using those with the university I was working at the time. Which is late 2016, I think, mid-2016, something like that. And yeah, that's been my journey to Power Platform, from finance to VB to SharePoint to InfoPath to Power Platform. Yeah, so I think that probably covers, about 25 odd years, I think, beginning to end. So yeah, it's been good. And it's amazing how I can go back even at the times of putting invoices on systems. You don't realise it at the time how important things like data quality are. If I put the wrong invoice number on or the wrong due date or the wrong value, someone's not going to get paid or they get paid the wrong amount. Actually, look back at those early learnings. I appreciate them a lot more now in a role where we're using data as a lifeblood of any org, isn't it? And how important data quality is. That theme has just gone throughout my whole career. So across different languages, data has always been the key. So it's been a good grounding, I guess, from beginning to end.
So it's interesting you say about data quality there. and how important you realize it is now. So do you really value the solutions that you're building and the fact that they help with data entry?
Yeah, I think so, because I've come across a lot of spreadsheets in my time where, we all know spreadsheets are great. You can spin up a spreadsheet very quickly, but in terms of databases, if you like, there's very little data quality. And we can just take a date field as an example. How many times people can do dates differently? You've got backslashes, dashes, full stops. Some people put the month first, some people put the date first. Very little things like that can cause an absolute nightmare from a data quality perspective. So, yeah, things you can do with what was back then SharePoint and InfoPath and SharePoint Designer, we can now do in the Power Platform, gives people that level of confidence with their data, which is absolutely massive, isn't it?
And I noticed you just draw a correlation between spreadsheets and databases.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, right? We used to have these tickets that used to come through on our previous places, and like, I've got this database. Can you convert it into what was then a SharePoint list? Yeah, no worries. Send us your database, and we'll have a look. It's basically just a Word document with a table in it. It's like, that's not a database. That's a Word doc. But everyone has a different idea of what a database is, and I think because we've got more technical experience, we've seen more things across the technical landscape to have a better idea of what a database is. I've seen SQL Server, I've done massive star schemas, I've seen Dataverse, I've seen SharePoint. I've got lots of comparables what a database is. Perhaps other people don't. They just kind of assume, oh, my Word document is a database. Why wouldn't it be? So is my spreadsheet. But again, actually, yeah, with that data quality in mind, maybe it's not a database. It's just data.
I think looking at something that's really topical in the news at the moment, which makes me shudder, is all the stuff that's going on with the post office at the moment. Have you been following along with that story? Did you watch that show that was on TV at all?
I didn't watch it, but I've heard about it. Yeah.
Is this about Horizon? Is it Horizon?
Yeah, about the Horizon, which was kind of a networked piece of hardware really that was in each sub postmaster's post offices, and it was miscalculating the end of the day takings, and it's like over 700 postmasters have been wrongly
they were arrested, weren't they? Jailed.
They were arrested, and some of them were jailed. Some of them took their own lives because they got into so much financial difficulty. And yeah, I when you're talking about data integrity, and it also flows into testing really as well, and how important testing is. I just wondered if you have any kind of like stories around, stories or best practice around testing that you can share with us, or things that we should really be looking out for as consultants.
Again, it just all starts with your data, doesn't it? Like, there's only so much you can test a good app. Does it do what I want to do? Yeah, fine. But what does it actually do to your underlying data? And I always try to do a lot of, I don't know the actual right terms for testing, but yeah, in terms of sort of like putting loads of data into your application, and does it do every single scenario you want it to do? Try and break the system. That's how I've always approached testing, officially or otherwise. Don't just follow the script that you're given, the test plan. Just go and click around and break stuff. Can I put in a dodgy date in this box? This says I can only put in a number. Let's put some text in. And what impact does that have on not just my data submissions, but any automations behind the scenes? Yeah, I think it's paramount. I think people can just sometimes just test just with, oh yeah, I've got to put this in this box. That's cool. But again, if you've got opportunities to put in dodgy data, like a spreadsheet, people will do through no fault of their own. And I think all that comes back to me from data quality perspective, working in NHS, because you've got all sorts of patient details left around on desks, like NHS numbers and people's medical histories, and you get a really good understanding of, like, even if you want to test a manual process, that still involves data and bits of paper, whether it's a database or whether it's not. You've got to put these things in the right place and make sure the data is captured correctly, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
Data's huge, man. I don't think people realise just enough about data, and especially with Copilot now, if people want to get the most out of low code and Copilot, it starts with your data, doesn't it? Like, if your data's rubbish, Copilot's going to be rubbish, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, and is that something? Moving to your blog for a moment. Platforms of power, isn't it? That's the right term. Platforms of power.net. So, I mean, I've been, watching your posts, and as you know, that I blog as well, but definitely not to the same kind of level or same kind of cadence as you do. That's one thing I really struggle with, unless I'm, get into a rabbit hole and do 3 in a weekend like I did last weekend. But do you? What I like about your blog posts is that they're very relatable. So you start with like that thing that you did with your wife. You start with that use case and you kind of look at it quite holistically, and it was very relatable. And I think that's sometimes missing sometimes in some blogs that I read, where it's more about the technicality of it rather than the issue or the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah, full on, man. And I think I wanted to take that angle, but also look at low code from a perspective that it can solve any kind of problem, well, most problems. We work for the same company. We're dealing with lots of complex and niche queries for clients where you get to build some really cool stuff. Let's just pop it out there, and it's going to be used by hundreds of millions of people across the country and the world, and it's wicked. When you come to doing content creation, you're probably not going to talk about too many things that are different, like environment variables or solutions. I'm still talking about those kind of things that other people have already talked about for a number of years, but just changing the context and giving it a different feel. Like, actually, these best practices still apply to a solution that I'm going to build with my better half, so she can do her self-employed business better. And actually, rather than just kind of look at some of the examples I see, is like build this list and use Contoso Limited. That's wicked for like a starting point, but maybe there's a few people out there a little bit beyond just using Contoso and want something a bit more real world, maybe, and they haven't had that exposure like we have in our day to day. So actually, here's a business problem. Let's break it down and build a solution. It might only be for one person to use, but actually, there's still requirements. There's still architecture involved. There's still lots of code that you can use over and over again for different scenarios. Yeah, that's what I've tried to do in my blog, is maybe just try and put different spins on things. And if I can't, then rather than using Contoso, I'll use Star Wars, because why not? Right?
Yeah.
Star Wars is just as a legitimate business scenario as anything else, so why not use it?
Yeah, it definitely is, especially the Galactic Empire. Definitely a business use case there, blowing up planets.
Yeah, I mean, just on the blog still, I remember me and Mike were chatting about this, and when Mike kind of started doing he started off in the LinkedIn stuff, and I think it's fair to say, Mike, maybe you weren't too sure to start off with, right? And I think sometimes you get hung up on the numbers, and I've kind of changed my mind about that. I think I did do that at the start. I was looking at how many people were viewing, and in more like the last couple of months, I've actually been writing about stuff that helps me. So as I've kind of said to a few people, and a few people know I've got ADHD, so I struggle with retaining information. And one of the best ways for me to retain information is to write it down. So actually, the way I see my blog now is more around things that are repeatable, that I know that I'm going to need to use and do at a later date. And instead of asking Mike, which is what I usually do, I'm going to go read my blog post on it. I think that resonates with some people, because one of the more popular blog posts that I've got is about application life cycle management and in DevOps, etc. And that's probably my most popular post, and that's literally just a step-by-step guide of how to set it up. So how do you feel about the amount of people seeing your blog? Do you look at that? Do you not look at that? Is it something that you keep an eye on, or are you not bothered? Being honest.
No, I do, but for different reasons. So let me explain. So when I first started out, my first sort of couple of blog posts, I was focusing, maybe not too much, but I was focusing on like the reactions on LinkedIn and how many views they were getting, more from a point of like, are people actually seeing it? Because the whole point of, well, one of the points is to obviously help me, the future me, to do stuff like you've just said, but also I want to help other people. So actually, if no one else sees my blog, how can I help them? Do you know what I mean? So there's an element of, I'm interested in the viewing and like the interactions, but obviously you can quickly understand social media and go, well, I think I said this on a VRT last year, that I know what I do. Sometimes I go down a social media feed and I might like stuff because I know it helps the algorithms for them, but I might not go and read that article or view that video. Because if I did that for every single thing I saw on a social feed, I wouldn't be able to work because I'd just spend a whole day looking at content, which would be wicked, obviously. But you can't. It's not always feasible, right? So actually, I changed my mindset to just look at my Google Analytics stuff. It's like, who's actually taken the time to click on the link to read my post? Because that's a real tangible interaction. Someone's been interested either through LinkedIn or through Power Platform Dev Weekly or through a Google search to say, hey, that article seems like the one I want. I'm going to click on it and read it. Those are the figures I'm more interested in. And I'm still interested in them now, but from a perspective of search engine optimization. So I want to make sure that I've got my keywords rightly structured. And I've got a couple of tools in WordPress that help me kind of using some AI bits actually that kind of help spread the keywords out. So if people are searching for those things in Google or other search engines, my article can perform slightly higher. So therefore it can reach a wider audience. So I still look at my stats now, but from a perspective of, one of my articles has only got 110 views. It's not doing very well. I need to go back and change some of the search terms so maybe it can rank higher in a Google search at some point. But also, it might be a niche article that not many people are going to need in every day of the week. So actually, well, maybe I'm not bothering, just focus on some other stuff instead. But yeah, I still look at the stats, but not from an egotistical point of view, or do you know what I mean? From a selfish point of view, it's more around can I reach a wider audience? And that's the main focus of my blog, as well as, there's many a time I've actually looked at my own blog and how do I do that again? I'll go and look at what I've done because I know I've written it down somewhere. And actually that really helps. I'm like you, John, if I don't write things down, I forget. I've got Post-it notes all over my desk of things I need to remember or things I need to do or acronyms that I can never quite remember every single word of it. So I'll just stick it on and Post-it notes so I have to write it down, otherwise I forget. So yeah, I'm with you there, man.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that about it not being, you look at the numbers, but not in a sort of I guess a selfish point of view. I mean, you should be very proud of the engagement that you do get on your blog. I mean, you only started.
Yeah.
No, I am. Last summer, wasn't it?
Yeah, May the 12th was my first. I actually got a note on my board. May the 12th was my granddad's birthday.
Yeah.
And it's the day before my birthday. And it's the day when my daughter's exactly 6 months, 6.5, 7.5 is half a year because her birthday's on the 12th of November. So that was my first blog I published on, the 12th of May last year. So yeah, as you say, Mike, I'm over the moon, flattered by the reception of my blog because at the end of the day, it's just my musings. I'll just sit down and type stuff going, what do I think's interesting? I don't know. Let's just write about that. And it's not necessarily the volume of people reading it, but just that small amount of people that interact with me on a weekly basis might send me a message to say thanks or comment on LinkedIn or, comment on the blog page itself going, hey, thanks, this is wicked, this is exactly what I need. And sometimes I still get those comments from blogs I've done in the past. And, that's not hundreds of people. There might be one or two a week, but that makes my day, that makes my week. It's like, oh, cool, someone's taken the time to read it and it's helped them. And they're then taking the time to go, hey, thanks, that's really cool. That makes my world. That's wicked. That's what it's all about to me. It's cool.
That's great. And what a perfect segue to our next question. How do you actually choose your topics that you blog about? Because you seem to come out with, you've got some mini series that you've done. You just seem to always have fresh content. How do you actually go about deciding what to write about, and what is that process for the next Craig White to start his or her own blog?
I'd love to say it's some sort of structured secret, but it really isn't. I just think of random things and I write them down. I've got a note on my phone. I keep meaning to put it in something proper, like an app or a SharePoint list or something like that, but whatever. There's a note on my phone that I can just open up and just write random stuff down. So I've got a lot of ideas like that, and they might be born from our engagements with clients. You see those niche things that you've done in a Flow or Power Up and go, oh, that's a nifty workaround. Hey, maybe one person in the future might need that, so I'm going to go and write a blog about it. So that's kind of one area of influence. I do a few bits on the forums. I'm not as active on the forums as I'd like to be, and there's people way more active than me. But again, you get lots of people that will ask the same questions rather than necessarily searching through the forums to find if it's already been answered. It's quicker for them to just go and post, oh, well, this is actually what I need. And my recent blog about patching multiple rows was born largely off the forum stuff, because you see lots of people ask the same questions and they're doing the for all and then the patch inside of that. And actually, there's a super user on the forums from Belgium. Like he's an absolute machine. Like
I
he
know who you
closes,
mean.
yeah, he
What's his
closes
name?
solutions down in his sleep. Like
Yeah.
the guy's an absolute weapon. He's
Yeah.
wicked. And he actually reached out and goes, "Oh, he was one of my people that I tested the blog on. Can you kind of sense check it? Can you play around with the solution that I delivered?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to quote this blog in future if I see any questions about for a patch." Like, wow, that's amazing. Thanks. So yeah, the forums can be another good avenue. And actually, I've got a blog post coming out next week, which is a forum fix I did over Christmas. It might not be the requirement everyone wants every single minute of every single day, but I thought it was pretty cool. And maybe it's going to help someone else in future I think it's taking the personal group column in the SharePoint list. Only gives you like 4 or 5 fields. So how do you then take those users and get the Office 365 user profile in a Power App? So, for me, that's quite easy. It's a with function, it's a for all, happy days. But someone else might need to know that information. So, hey, I'm going to do an article about it. So that was an influence. I think just experience as well. I've obviously been playing around with Power Platform since 2016. So it's at the start, near the start. So I've obviously had a bit more experience than some other people, which is cool, both in consultancy and embedded IT. So there's a few things that I think, hey, let's blog about that. Things that I don't necessarily see a lot of content on. Maybe it is about those architectural things like environment variables. That's my most popular blog. That hit over 2,000 views this week. Like that gets 50, 60 hits on Google a week. Cool. It obviously shows that there's not enough of that kind of architectural content.
Configuration kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I'm glad I covered that. I wanted to kind of target some areas that I didn't think there was enough content of, or enough relevant content that was kind of real world on the ground stuff. Like, so I mapped that to my wife's solution. And like data loss prevention. I did a multi-part series on that. I'm huge on the admin side of things. I did a lot of admin in previous roles, and I think there's a lot of need for Power Platform administrators to be their own dedicated roles now. We've got them in Microsoft 365, like Modern Work admins, Office 365 admins, SQL admins. Everyone's got an admin role or roles provisioned in organisations except Power Platform. And I want to cover a lot more topics this year about the admin side, not just DLP, but in terms of environment strategy, all the kind of settings around tenant isolation, doing some deeper dives. So just some just some influences around there of like, what do I think is relevant for today that I don't see enough content on? And I kind of sprinkle out a bit of techie stuff here and there. Like I'm going for a bit of a tech phase at the moment. I've got a few blogs around looking at functions that people don't necessarily use a lot, but might be useful at some point. And then I'm going to follow that up with some more admin-y stuff from kind of March onwards. So just trying to get good influences from around you. I think we're very lucky that we can do that. And then you can use your own imagination on top of that, I think. What's cool, what's current, go and play with it. And
just something that you touched on there, you said about Power Platform admin roles. Why do you think in some organisations that role doesn't exist? Is it a monetary thing? Is it a monetary thing? Is it an understanding thing? Is it like they can't find the right type of person to fill that role?
Well, I think that's the next level down. I think the last 2 points you made there, I think that's my perception anyway. And obviously, everyone's got their own. But I just don't think that at the moment there's enough awareness of what's needed to kind of keep a healthy platform. So organisations now, I think, are starting to, the pennies dropping. Oh, we need low-code solutions because we can, with rapid application development, we can make things quicker. We can get return on our investment. That's cool. But equally, there's lots of people that have got, a default environment in their tenant, lots of activity happening, lots of things that are suspended or broken or not being used, or the owners left and, left a whole bunch of applications or solutions just lying around doing nothing. I think there's the awareness of the benefits of low code, but not the awarenesses of how to keep the low code environments healthy. And that's where that environment, the administrators come in. And that's what we have, isn't it? For, an Exchange admin, for example, we send emails every single day and we take that for granted because we've been using email for years. But behind every massive install of Exchange on premise or in the cloud, there's an administrator to make sure SMTP relays are working as intended. Active Directory synced up so we've got the global address list. Data loss prevention for exchanges in there that you can't forward sensitive emails. Things have policies. There's an admin behind all of these massive tools, down to the awareness over many, many years of what these tools are and what they need. I think that awareness needs to start for low code now. Like, okay, yeah, we can build some cool stuff, but hey, we need someone on the ground just to make sure that people are building safely, and not kind of like, sending random data off to Google Drive or to Twitter. You need an admin to kind of look after those areas and make sure people are building safely and getting the right return on investment. So maybe it's just doing awareness stuff. And then you're right, mate. After that, if you go to advert now and go, okay, I want to advertise for Power Platform Administrator, go on LinkedIn Jobs and Google and search for Power Platform Administrator. You won't find many roles, if any. You find developers, consultants, engineers. You don't find dedicated admins like you do for Entra or AD, whatever it's called this week, or Exchange or M365. And I think I want that awareness to start being increased over the next couple of years, and just how important that role is, and especially with AI and Copilot on now active and going to mature over this year and the following years, those admin roles become more and more important, I think, mate. I'll get off the soapbox about that one now.
No, it's good. It's good. I think it's very important. I've always kind of banged on about how important that Centre of Excellence toolkit is. Right from the very beginning, before I was a consultant, I remember having conversations with the company that I was working for, and it had basically just come out, and I was like, this is important. And they were like, well, we don't really have the resource or the time to install it. And unfortunately, that's where the problems start, I think, or could start. That whole, the Wild West terminology. You get enterprise customers that have, multiple environments, and then you start looking at their DLP and they realise they don't actually have any, which is a bit of a, and it's. I think it's quite commonplace, probably, and that's just an educational piece, really.
100% agree. And I'll tell you, a previous place that I worked, with the greatest respect, if you put in a request to change something, a bit of config for Exchange or AD, it'll probably get signed off in a matter of minutes, because the senior team and everyone around it understands those technologies. Been working for many, many years, and they go across everyone. So it's like, oh yeah, I understand what X feature is. Yeah, I'll sign that off. Yeah, go and test it, and we'll roll it out next month for a change request. Wicked. When we got to, and our colleague Chris Toffs, me and him, we did about 5 million test installations of the Series starter kit. This was back at a point where it was quite immature compared to what it is now. There's nowhere near enough flows and apps as what it has got now. So we were like, this is a starter kit. We also need to build our own stuff on top of it and extend it to get the reports you want. And we went through like an 18-month sign-off process where we had to do like endless meetings, endless Word documents. And I think there's kind of, a real struggle to kind of, a real hammer home is like, well, okay, yeah, this is all good, but we need this in. And then when we got it installed in finally, and then waved under the, like, what connectors are being used and all the data breaches that were going on, I think there was a few faces that are like, well, we should have done this sooner. I was like, that's why we were telling you for 18 months, we need to get this sorted out. So, it's a very much an awareness thing. And, I hope, it looks like there's more stuff coming from the Series starter kit that's going to go into the Power Platform Admin Center. Long may that continue, because then you don't have to install that kit. Admins have just got a lot of stuff in PPAC straight from the bat, which is only a good thing in my opinion.
Do you think that's going to kind of leak into the whole managed environment setup as well? Do you think as features that are going to go in there? I think it's going that way, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's already going that way. And I kind of get the methodology, because I think if people are already licensed on a per user basis, if the environment's managed, it doesn't matter because they're already licensed. I think it's the struggle for those organisations that aren't licensed so broadly, that managed environments, rightly, have to be a few years down the road. They've got to strategically plan on when they can release the funds to license everyone to use them. But I think at such a point in time, the admins that are there are going to be a bit more overloaded, because they'll be doing a bit more cranking and things manually. They'll be begging for managed environments to make their lives a little bit easier. But I can see managed environments getting more and more features over this year and next year. Which again is a good thing, so long as the licenses are there and people can use them. From an admin perspective, it should hopefully make lives easier. So yeah, I'm all for it, man.
That's great. You do bang out these blog posts pretty quickly and very, very regularly. How do you get the time? Because I know for a fact you're a family man. You have to wash your hair.
I do.
You have a wife. How do you get the time to sit down and write? I know when I write a blog post, it takes me so long.
Yeah, it does. Does for me at times as well. I don't think actually. Like, I'll touch on that in a minute. Like, I don't think people underestimate how long it takes to put a blog together. I think sometimes, but maybe we'll touch on that in a minute. In terms of time, I had this would be a long-winded answer, but stick with it. I had a conversation with Mr. Huntingford last year. It's like, you guys have got an insight into what he does so much. He's in the gym at R5 every morning. He works his socks off. He's doing community things. He's a family man. You know, he's nuts. And I pinged him last year. How do you do it all? And he just went, life's for living, mate. It kind of made me think a little bit. It's like, well, I get to 8 o'clock and I just flop in front of the TV for about an hour and a half and go to bed. And then it gets to the weekend and I've got some free time, so I'll just flop in front of the TV with a beer until I go to bed. And actually, I've actually got more free time than what I realised. I just wasn't being productive with that free time. Now, I don't want to go and fill all my free time with loads of stuff. I still need to balance. But it made me think first of, okay, well, I've got more time to be productive. So what can I do with that time? So then in terms of mapping that to a blog, it's like, okay, well, I want to do a blog. I've wanted to do a blog for years. All right, well, I've got an hour in the evenings after the little one goes to bed. And the wife's probably watching whatever it is she's watching that I don't want to watch. All right, well, I could sit and watch it with her, watch it in inverted commas, and like play Candy Crush on my phone or something stupid, or I can go write a blog post for an hour. Not every night. Some nights I can't be bothered. I didn't last night, for example, could be asked. So I'll watch Harry Potter instead of ate a whisper. Why not? But sometimes carving out that time for yourself, actually probably got more time than we realise. That was the first thing I want to say. Secondly, I'm very lucky because my wife has been part-time for a number of years. And now she runs her own business. She still kind of carves out a bit of time for herself during the week. And she pressed long before COVID, because I've been kind of like full-time and I used to do like mental hours as well. And she's just like, you know, take one of the days at the weekend to do your own thing. And it took me a while to actually kind of listen to her. But it's a huge benefit for my mental health, actually, just to kind of... It's a day where I'm not colleague, I'm not leader, I'm not husband, I'm not daddy, I'm just me. And then I looked at that day where I used to just be so unproductive on that day. It's like lie in bed till mid-morning and I just watch sport all day, which, you know, it's fine, right? Some days I still do that because why not? I need to recharge. But actually, I'm a bit more productive with that time now. So, yeah, I get on the forums on a Sunday, I draft a blog post. So I'm lucky that I have that time and that relationship and that freedom, I guess, from my relationship to do that. And my daughter's 8, you know, she's a little bit more independent. You know, she doesn't need to be kind of watched so much. You know, she's quite happy doing her own thing, or I can do things while she's kind of playing and stuff. You know, I don't need to kind of, you know, feed her or change a nappy. And it's not as parent intensive, I guess. So I think I'm quite lucky. And yeah, if you support your wife to go self-employed, you can dine out on that one for years, right? You can just go, well, you know, if it weren't for me, you would be self-employed, right? So I'm going to go and do some blogging. So there's a tip for all the listeners. If you want to buy some husband points, carve out some time for community work.
I think the issue that I've had in the past with that, around that time management piece, is that Power Platform really was my kind of hobby for quite a long time, and like I was interested in it. Like I was interested in Power Automate. I was interested in Dataverse, and back in the day, a bit of Canvas apps. And
really, John,
and then
what?
That's
I mean, I got
right here.
I got 2 jobs based off the look and feel of a Power app that Canvas app that I built. So yeah. Anyway, model-driven apps are better, by the way. We'll come to that in a minute.
Yeah.
So my thing is, it's my hobby, and now it's also my work, and so I'll do stuff in the evening because I want to, you know, kind of learn and progress. And that's when I do my blog posts. And my wife, Katie, will say to me, "Oh, are you still working?" And I'm like, not really.
This is my not real work.
Yeah.
I guess I understand what she's saying, and she's like, because there's sometimes, like last night, for example. Last night I probably stayed on much longer than I should have done. I was pretty honest with my timesheet, but I came away thinking, yes, I probably did need to do that, but was it the right thing? I don't know. It's that's the hard bit. That's the bit that I find hard to balance. And also talking about, like we talked about earlier on about ADHD, that hyper focus part. My hyper focus part at work is crazy. I quite like it with all the different things going on, and I enjoy that busyness. And these last couple of weeks, as we all know, has been crazy. But I love that. I prefer it, but also I don't give my brain a rest till at least like sometimes 9, half 9, and that's probably not great, but I do enjoy it. It's so difficult to kind of understand.
It's a release, isn't it? Like for me, it is anyway. Because I'm not. Yeah. My role with A&S is not hands-on. I'm teaching other people how to embrace low code, and then they go and teach their people how to go and do stuff, and it's wicked, and I love that. But I don't get to build much myself, so I like seeing blogging as a hobby. You could spend a couple of hours down the pub every night with your mates. Some people do that as a hobby. You could go and play football 5 nights a week. You could do whatever. Just because it's in front of a screen, I think outside looking in, it looks like an extension of your work life. It's like, well, yeah, but I'm in the same office. I've got the same screens in front of me. But actually, during the day, I'm evangelizing about low code. In the evening, I get to kind of do my fun stuff where I just get to write a bit of code myself and build an app and build a flow. And it might not be perfect. And I'm sure there's loads of people that go, what? That code's rubbish. You can do it in a better way. Yeah, cool. Show me. I don't care. But I just get to tinker around, and there's no pressure for me because I haven't got a sprint deadline I've got to build something by. I've got my own deadlines. So I'd like to get this blog done by this point, and I need to write some code quick. But I just think it's a totally different ethos. Like, it's a hobby, and I always remember it's a hobby, but it gives me an opportunity to just scratch that itch of just building some stuff without pressure. And I'm sure it's the same for you guys, isn't it? Like, you just want to go away and like write some code or test a theory. You might have seen something in a client requirement that I'm pretty sure this idea is going to work, but I need time to research it and then test it. And I haven't got the time in my current sprint. So I've just got to do what I need to do in a rush, which I know might not be optimal, but we need to get this thing over the line because the client's pressures and whatever else. We've got this, that, and the other. So to take that away and go, I'm going to go and just test that out because it's going to niggle me until 10 o'clock at night, like you, John, like your brain don't rest, do you? You want to kind of test it out. All right, cool. I'll go and sit here at night and go, right, what was that scenario? Right, I'll build a SharePoint list of my own tenant, replicate the data structure, stick an app on top of it and go and play around. Did it work? Oh, no, it didn't. Does it work? Yes, it does. All right, I'll blog about that. Yeah. Cool. Hey, Mike, that thing I did the other day, yeah, there's a better way. If you've got time in the next sprint, maybe you can kind of try this different method. And it just kind of snowballs like that, right? But yeah,
and I think also
with it, because otherwise I get really stressed out and fidgety if I'm not using my brain.
Sure
same,
I get
right?
I become like a bit of a caged animal if I don't have an outlet like that.
Christmas as well, like when you've got more than 3 or 4 days off, I start like twitching and foaming the mouth a little bit just because I need to use my brain because it just melts away watching endless YouTube videos about horses or whatever it is my daughter's into. It's like, no, I need to go and use my brain properly, like. Yeah, and play around with some stuff.
And also talking on that extra stuff, and I think me and Mike probably both could say it kind of at a similar time. But massive congratulations for your MVP status, mate.
100%.
If anyone is deserving of that, it's you, because I know how hard you work, and how good you are. I'm really, really, really chuffed for you that you got that. And I think that is something, if you can explain it to your wife that, this is the reason why I've been taking this time, because at the end of the day, whatever people say about MVP, it is something that's amazing for people in this space. It gives you, insight into the product team, all that kind of stuff, which is really beneficial for you and for the people you are working with and for. So, I just wanted to say that, really well done. I know you two don't take praise very often very well. So, yeah, well done.
That was the last 24 hours has been absolutely mental. So I found out at 7:30 yesterday morning, which is what I literally just put because I do Tuesdays tend to be the day where I put a post up on social media, say, hey, here's my latest blog, da da da. I literally just posted that on LinkedIn. And then I closed LinkedIn down and I noticed my emails had gone up by a couple. I was like, who's emailing me this time in the morning? And I swiped down from my phone just to have a look for the notifications. And that's what I saw. I was like, whoa, no way. Like, even like through the process of filling out the forms and stuff last year, in my head, I was like, they can't be that desperate, can they? Well, it turns out they are, for starters. So that's the first bit. But then yesterday, like, I know I've got a nice following and it's great, but I still have that imposter syndrome, or I don't know, whatever it is. Like, am I actually really that liked as much as what people say they am? Do they really think I'm a you know what? So the response I've had in the last 24 hours has been overwhelming. Like, I struggle. I've said this to a few people in the last 24 hours. When I've got more than one WhatsApp chat with a message in it, I struggle because I like structure, routine. I like to be able to control things. It's my way my brain works. So to have Teams and Twitter and LinkedIn and people ringing me and texting me, and just like what? This is mad. Obviously, it's amazing and very, very flattering. Of course, it is. But yeah, I just wasn't prepared for that reception and just how crazy it's going to be in a nice way of people congratulating me and saying well done. So. And there's lots of other people who got the award yesterday that I'll give a shout out to here. We've been talking over the last sort of couple of months, like, have you been nominated? Oh, yeah, I have. Have you? Oh, yeah, cool. Have you heard yet? No, not heard yet. So it's great to kind of see a number of people yesterday get that award because they've been doing things in the community a lot longer than I have, per se. So they're more deserving of it than me. So it's lovely to see people get that recognition, but also, there's probably people out there that were hoping for it and didn't get it. And yeah, the message to them is just to carry on. Like, at the end of the day, we've all heard this advice before, and it's something I've been told a lot for many years, and I still stand by it. If you want to become an MVP, don't try and become an MVP. Just do your thing. Help people, help the community, help people to learn. Whether it's one person or a million people, it doesn't matter. If you like speaking, go and speak. Go and tell people about some cool stuff you've done. If you like blogging, if you like virtual sessions, if you want to help people on the forums, just go and help people, share your knowledge, what you know, and actually you'll find that people will reach out to you and share what they know. I've had a few people with that on my blog as well. It's like, hey, I like your blog. Did you know you could do it this way instead? No, I didn't. Cool. I've learned something from doing my own stuff. And, all the perks and the praise, everything else will come with it over time. Just don't stress it too much. I haven't. So, yeah, it's a genuine surprise when I got the award. So, yeah, happy days. So
congratulations, Craig.
It still feels weird though. Like, I was typing it this morning. Like, someone pinged me going, "Hello, Mr. MVP." I was like, I can't compute that in my head yet. It doesn't feel right. Probably sounds daft, but yeah, it might take some getting used to, I think.
Seriously, congratulations. That's amazing. I mean, bearing in mind that your community engagement's been going since May last year.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's a very fast turnaround as well.
It is. I'm very grateful. And I sort of understand. My natural thing is, why me? Like John said, I don't take praise very well. I never have, to be honest. But yeah, it's just an added motivation to say, well, I must be doing something right. So, hey, I'm going to carry on doing some really cool stuff in 2024. I've got loads of blog ideas. I've got a few speaker sessions that are kind of pending that maybe I'll get to. I'd like to go to a few events this year. I've got loads of apps that I want to build and share with the community for free. So, badge or no badge, I've still got all these plans that I want to keep sharing stuff. And but it just gives us that added bit of a boost to go, hey, people like my stuff and I'm helping people. So, hey, let's carry on. Don't fix what isn't broken, if you know what I mean.
No, great stuff. So, now we come on to our regular segment, and if this may not work, but we've actually got a bit of production value here.
I couldn't hear that. I just heard that.
It goes uncomfortable corner.
Oh, maybe I should. Yeah, what? I'm going to turn the volume up and do it again, so just for Craig's benefit.
Oh, wicked.
Uncomfortable corner.
Yeah, that still sounds proper John. Yeah.
No budget spent.
That's actually John. That was John in episode 1 saying uncomfortable corner. He just turned the pitch down.
I didn't know whether it was you or me.
Yeah.
All right, that's hilarious.
Brilliant.
You should, to be honest, I should get paid for every word. So that's like 4p. Well, no, 8p. Played it twice.
So, uncomfortable corner. So, Craig, when was the last time you felt uncomfortable as a solution architect?
I feel uncomfortable as a solution architect pretty much every single day of the week, mate. So, you
can get better underwear for that.
Yeah, probably
can. More comfy.
I think we've had chats offline for the last year, haven't we? Individually and collectively. I imposter massively, and I think the older I've got and the higher up the chain of roles that I've got, the more I imposter. Am I right for this role? Do I know enough? I always feel like I don't know the answers to things. There's always areas that I'm not good at that I have to delegate. I feel uncomfortable most days as a solution architect, to be honest. I'm better. I think the last year and my blog, ironically, has given me the confidence to say, hey, you know what? I do know some stuff. I might not know it all, and I don't know anyone alive who does. But yeah, there are times if there's a solution that I don't know the answer to, I kind of feel a bit down. It's like, well, I feel a bit uncomfortable here. I'm in the right place. Am I getting paid too much for what I do? I don't know. But actually, I've got some good people around me that can kind of it's a bit like a football team, isn't it? And that's what we're trying to build at ANS. So you don't want a team for the strikers. You need a back. You need a defence. You need someone to stop the goals going in. You need someone to protect the defenders. You need some creative players that can create chances. You need someone to put the ball in the back of the net. You need lots of different roles. So actually, I can feel less uncomfortable, knowing that there's some really good people around me in ANS that kind of share the burden. So I feel less uncomfortable. I think that's the best way of putting it. But yeah, certainly in the last couple of years, I've struggled with identity a little bit. Maybe since losing leaving a previous role. So yeah, I've struggled. Dropping into consultancy as well, I think can be quite challenging, and it's a lot faster paced in embedded IT. Lots more kind of quirky requirements, and yeah, there's been times I've been like, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I probably do, but yeah, I feel uncomfortable most days. I say it gets better, and I'm sure you guys probably have. I know we've had similar thoughts over the last sort of year, 2 years, 3 years. You always feel like you're not good enough, but actually, when you look back on what we've achieved over the last couple of years, individually as a team, actually we're doing all right, and we've got more reason to think about things positively. What we have done rather than what we can't do, right? And I think we can probably all just try and remember those things, that none of us are perfect, and actually we are all achieving some really good stuff. So focus on the good things that you're doing and not on the things you can't. You can always learn the things you can't. But I've shared this many a time. I think I probably told you too, the David Beckham analogy that I learned from, I think it was some kind of previous athlete, like a motivational speech. So Beckham's massive, isn't he? Huge footballer. Everyone knows who he is. But from a football perspective, he wasn't very fast. He couldn't header a football. He had no left foot. But he could take a corner and a free kick like no one else in the world. Best in the business. And I think he was told at a younger age, if he wants to be world class, he's got to improve all these weaker areas. And he was like, well, I could go and be slightly less fast and slightly less rubbish at heading a football, or I could take the things that I'm really good at and be the best in the world. And that's how I try and approach the Power Platform and other tech now. I was like, well, you know what? I'm never going to be amazing at model-driven apps. I could probably make myself a bit better, but I'd rather be the best in the world at Canvas apps, as an example, right? Yeah. And other people think differently across. John, you're really strong at Power Automate. All right, but put us two together and we can make a front-end and a back-end solution banging, because we've got our strengths. We could both make our weaknesses less weak and therefore reduce that imposter syndrome and therefore feel more comfortable. But we can also focus on what we're good at and just be the best at it, and then just probably feel a little bit more kind of contentment or happiness, I suppose, and reduce that imposter side of things. So yeah, I feel it most days, but I think I'm trying to get better. I'm sure you boys are as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The bit that really resonated with me then, when you said about delegating, and yeah, that is all about it's really surrounding yourself with A, people you trust, and B, that different skill set, right? But I do really struggle with that delegating piece, and I think the thing that makes me better at it is time frame. So if I have something to build that say is supposed we've estimated it at 4 hours. If I get to like 2 hours and I haven't really cracked it, or half the time, that's something that I've learned where I'm like, right, now's the time I need to ask for help. This is the only probably in consultancy. Not before that, I definitely didn't do that. I would kind of, and that was because of that time component. I think because I was embedded app support, IT kind of thing. There wasn't really that time pressure as such. Whereas now there is, and it's like a little parrot on my shoulder that says, "Have you done it yet? Have you done it yet? No, we'll go and ask someone for help." And I think that's quite important in consultancy. And I think where we work, it's kind of drilled into you that that's always available. And I think that's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's down to trust, isn't it? But I think you can also lean on some experiences of like, even pre-consultancy, you can take your experiences and apply them. And I just kind of thought one on the spot while you're talking there, John, about previous role. I got promoted to manage this large team, and we covered SharePoint, Active Directory, MIM, Exchange. Half of those things I didn't have a Scooby-Doo about. And I was trying too hard to upskill myself in those areas. Just got overwhelmed because, like you said, I didn't want to delegate because I wanted to own, because I thought that was my responsibility. And like my manager, who got promoted, which enabled me to then get this promotion, he said, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's like you've got excellent leads and people in these areas that know the stuff. They've been doing it for years. You haven't, So I found a niche role. I was like, what? I'll fight the battles, the political stuff. So if they need a screen for the brown stuff that falls from top down, I'll be the screen so they can just go and, do their thing." But yeah, I wanted to kind of still focus on the bits that I was good at, which was the SharePoint and the Power Platform stuff, because that's the bit I'm passionate about. So drive that forward, but delegate to the other really good people I was working with. One of them has since gone on to be like a senior program manager at Microsoft. I think he actually works on Seattle time now. To delegate stuff to him and go, you know what, you go and run the Exchange stuff. If you need me, give me a shout. But actually, I don't need to do your job for you. And I can't teach you anything technical because, he did all sorts of stuff with PowerShell and Exchange that I haven't got a clue about. So it's like, why am I going to learn that? Mate, you're better at my mate. You go and do it. So you can take those lessons of delegation from yourself, or maybe the way other managers have been in completely different industries. I take a lot from my finance days and one of my first managers there, and the way she managed people with delegated tasks. Taking those influences from your earlier parts of your career and apply it. So if you do get into consultancy and it's a bit faster paced, actually you've got some reference points to say, well, I could do all this stuff in the time frame like John's mentioning, but actually it might be better if I delegate this, or it's going to help us run faster if I can kind of, delegate that instead, and just take those learnings and apply them. But it's difficult at times. You kind of want to dabble yourself, do lots of things yourself. It can be tough to kind of let go sometimes, and I appreciate that. It's quite hard, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So, Craig, has anything new in the Power Platform space that you want to talk about today?
Anything new?
Anything you found out recently? Anything that's recently been, I don't know, the last release was sort of beginning of December, wasn't it?
Well, I literally just found out. I had I saw a blog last night about some additional stuff coming to Modern Controls for Power Apps.
Yes.
I've not fully digested it yet, but from what I understand, there are some more Creator Kit like components coming into Modern Controls that effectively would use lots of controls in one, like a header. There's some other bits. There's some additional properties coming to like the modern drop-down stuff. The theming stuff is going to improve as well. I've not fully digested the blog, so I've forwarded it to myself. I saw it this morning. I'm all for anything that makes Power Apps interfaces, Canvas app interfaces look nicer and are easier for people to look nice, because the classic controls can be quite clunky, and I think they're starting to be a bit dated now to some extent. So anything improvement-wise and new for the modern controls and the experiences in Canvas apps, I'm all over that, because Canvas apps is my heart, that's my passion. So yeah, any updates in around there is all good. And what I'd like to see then is the Copilot side of things in Power Apps starting to use the modern controls when they come out of preview rather than defaulting to the classic stuff. That's the kind of thing I'd like to see next. We'll start promoting these modern controls and properties as part of those AI builds. I think that's going to be the next key thing that I'd like to see as well.
Yeah, because I saw that Matthew Devaney made a post about that yesterday, didn't he?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Was it yesterday? It might have been very early this morning. I've actually just got it up in front of me now, and I think one of the changes is it to do with forms?
Forms,
or is it something about merging where you'd normally have like 3 controls for an input?
That's right.
It's now gone down to 1.
Yeah, happy days.
Yeah,
and again, this is all part of. This is all anything that's going to reduce the barrier of entry for Power Apps. Because, I mean, I love Power Apps. I've done for years. I still think it can be quite difficult to grasp from a maker perspective if you've never done any kind of Excel formulas or anything like that before. I think I took to it like a duck to water because I've done all sorts of stuff in Excel and Access. So there's a lot of field.value. That's bread and butter to me. Whereas Flow, I think, is quite an easy barrier of entry, like with respect. The templates are a lot easier to configure and do a really cool automation. So any of these custom new modern controls that are reducing, complexity and making things easy for people, that's got to lower the barrier of entry for new starters to Power Apps especially. So I'm all for it.
Apart from the new UI in Power Automate, which, no offense, can get in the bin.
Yeah, I was up with a client this morning.
I can't do it. I can't deal with it.
I was up with a client this morning. I was like, right, step 1, great Flow. Step 2, switch to Classic Designer.
There's things now that we spotted. Like the other day, I spotted something that so the delay component inside the Classic editor, quite often when you open it up, it doesn't render properly. So it says time and then the value. It tells you like the duration and then whether it's minutes, hours, or seconds. You can't edit that in the Classic. You have to edit it in the new UI, and it works in there, and then it works in the Classic. But there are some flows. If you built a flow that's quite complex, and it tells you that it's not available to open. So what happens there? I haven't got to one of those yet, but
I don't know. Obviously, I'm not close to anything around Power Automate as much as perhaps what you are, John. But my perception of Power Automate was it's absolutely fine. Don't fix what ain't broken, but I'm sure there's reasons why we want to move to the modern designer, and I dare say that at some point it might become the default if it's not already, and eventually they're going to phase out the classic one. But like you say, is that going to break any legacy in inverted commas Power Automate builds that people have done? I don't know. There certainly seems across social media there's a lot of division around the new UI for Power Automate. I think that's a fair way of putting it, isn't it? It seems to be a bit like Marmite at the moment. You either love it or hate it.
I think the problem is
room for improvement, and I'd imagine there's a lot of feedback that's already gone back to the product groups to try and smooth out some of these kind of lumps in the road. It has potential, but again, there's just little things for me. Like personally, like I like to have the actions. You click on it, and all the configuration bits are in the same box rather than this kind of side out panel. And then I find the side out panel doesn't actually work when you try and click a SharePoint site or something. You click on it and it doesn't actually show it. Yeah, there's a few things that need to be smoothed out, but I'm sure maybe that it's just changed sometimes, isn't it? Sometimes
I think that's it.
And I think we'll have it to some extent, don't we? So
and I think the problem is that this new designer, it hasn't been given as an option. It's kind of been forced on people with then the ability to change back. So if you think like the modern controls in Canvas apps was an option you enabled in the settings to say that you wanted to use them specifically because they were a pre-release feature. I mean, is it still preview or is it generally available now?
I don't know. That's a good question.
I think it is GA. Yeah.
Is it GA? Wow. Okay. Because
I think so.
Yeah. So that'd be why it's being forced down people's throats rather than giving them the option to enable it.
I think that's the good thing at the moment. It's just whether or not they decide to take that option away.
Yeah.
So is there a thought of get used to the quirks and everything in modern controls and help improve them by feeding back to product groups or whatever else, or keep on that resistance of I'm going to go back to classic. At the moment, I'm in Alaska. I can't lie. I know my way around the classic, so that's where I'm comfortable. I like to kind of use the new stuff when I know it's in a good enough spot to use without being frustrated.
Yeah.
Which personally is why I've not used much of the model controls in Canvas apps yet, because I know most of them in preview. I've had a dabble, but I know I've spotted a few bugs.
There are, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a few other things that have been released recently, like the new formula bar sometimes doesn't load when you open up an app. So there's a few things that are kind of like, get pushed upon us that I'd like to be able to turn off or have the ability to have options. And hopefully they're kind of like, this switching designer thing. I hope that kind of stays in for a while. Until some of that. I'm all for using the new stuff, but I'd like it to be stable and not cause me endless pain and frustration. Because a developer's world is mostly, what is it, that Edison light bulb thing about finding 99 ways not to make a light bulb or whatever it was. Yeah. That's how I feel about Canvas apps and flows sometimes. You find lots of ways not to do things because you're going, build, it fails, build, it fails, build, it fails. Oh, it works, wicked, cool. Well, that's your frustration. You don't want anything on top of that that's going to make the experience more difficult, do you? That's
definitely.
Yeah. you bring up a topic there that's probably lots of people listening will be like, the modern designer, here we go.
It's very topical and it gets us the viewers, so
no, Craig is getting us the viewers.
Well, that's
come
true.
On,
yeah.
Come on, Mike.
Mate, I'm not a celebrity. You guys are getting the viewers, mate. Especially with the stuff that you're doing with JustAskIt. So don't downplay your current impact in the community, lads, because you're doing some pretty awesome stuff with that bad boy.
Yeah, actually, I was going to talk a little bit about JustAskIt. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, we were just one of our topics of today was just around that prompt orchestration. So last Thursday, and I'm terrible with dates, as John knows, so I have to get my calendar up. So that was the 4th of January 2024.
Yes.
Myself and John were on the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform developer community call, where we actually showed off the current state of JustAskIt. And we gave a really good demonstration, I thought, of the ability to send a prompt, get the response, and then get that Mermaid.js diagram. At the end of that, I then demonstrated what's next for JustAskIt. And that was around the prompt orchestration, which I don't know if I actually called it prompt orchestration at the time, but I just showed a flow that actually does what I'm calling prompt orchestration. And what that means is that we're actually looking to do data-driven prompts. So when I say data-driven prompts, what I'm talking about is we have a table of a parent prompt, and then we have a subtable of many prompts that can be triggered, and they get triggered in order. So what becomes quite powerful with large language models is, one, obviously in a chat interface, you can ask more questions of a large language model and get responses based on the context. But by doing it the way we're doing it, you could also change the model that you use. And you might think, why would you want to use GPT 3.5 when you can use GPT 4? I read this really interesting white paper, and I'm going to find it for the show notes. And it talks about using a less capable large language model to keep a larger, more capable large language model in check. So because your GPT-4, GPT-5 is so much more capable and has so many more parameters, it can go off and do so many things. But actually, you might want something as more constrained as, say, GPT-2, which I think the white paper references, to actually keep that in check and say, well, actually, I have these certain amount of parameters. I'm going to just check the work of this larger language model. So, and actually gave a little demonstration in that we use GPT 3.5 to do some text extraction from a GPT 4.5 prompt, or from a response from GPT 4.5. So yeah, that was really sort of the orchestration topic. I know I've been banging on about this to John for the past month. We actually got so what triggered it was that I've been thinking about flow orchestration for quite a while, in that, are there ways that we can build solutions that, rather than hard coding this flow that does this particular process, we actually give the ability for your end user to say, actually, the process is going to be, I send approval here, I update this, I send another approval. Actually make that data driven, make that into like your own designer, but you build these child flows that actually then get triggered in order.
Yeah, we used
So
to
I
do
started
like
with
the
that
concept
idea, and then it's gone into now prompting. And I think,
yeah,
John, you've sort of just got your head around it, because I'm very bad at explaining these things sometimes.
you know, mate.
Yeah, I think I'm, and this kind of leads back to when we were talking about the new designer in Power Automate. I'm very much a visual learner, so we can have these conversations, and for me to really understand it, I need to see it working. And the first time I properly saw it working really was on that developer call. So no, some bits of it, like even just the bit where we realised that there was a point where we were going over the number of tokens, and Mike basically redesigned the flow so that what it does is it sends that request to a large language model and asks it to summarize it first, and then sends it back on to the large language model again in summary format. So it's a completely different way of thinking, really. And that's, I
We
mean, going
tried
back
to
to the
do
name of it, that's why we called it Just Ask It, because
well
that's what Mike said to me. He's like, well, just ask it to do what you need it to do.
exactly that. But breaking down flows or things like that into those little mini components that you can kind of bolt on and call when you want. Back when the HTTP actions in Flow were free, which there was a time,
Wow.
we could kind of like at the moment your natural design for if you want to send an email in a flow, you've got 10 flows, and at the bottom of it you've got to send an email v2 action, right? 10 times. What we do is a web service. It's like, well, actually, doesn't matter what flow we've got across what area of the business, just call this HTTP endpoint and pass through senders, a subject, and a body. And then we had one flow that was a web service that got hit by all these other flows in different environments, whatever it was. And like at any point in time in anyone's flow, I need to send an email, I need to start an approval, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do the other. Again, this is probably before child flow, so maybe this is kind of what replaced it. Just go and call this web service and sort of like break it down into these little like compartments. Like you can just say like build your own flow. Right, okay, well, I want to send an email. Right, add this action in and call this HTTP endpoint and pass through this JSON body and rinse and repeat. That's all we've got to do.
Yeah.
It made design and architecture look quite fun. Whereas now it's a bit more kind of rigid, isn't it? In terms of like you've got to have those individual actions, or like get your wallet out, I suppose. So the theory, I think, has been there for quite a while, and it's nice actually to see that actually we can take those learnings from other technologies and other experiences and other projects that we've done in the last 5, 10, 15 years. Actually, the principles are the same, but the technology is changing. And actually, I think it's really cool because you can just recycle those ideas and just apply it to something new. And that's where you're getting real value, because you can take those experiences and shape how we're going to build something else. That's wicked, man.
Yeah.
And that demo last week was absolutely mind blowing, because I'd seen that the first part of it, because when John's been introducing that segment and solution architect, that was the conversation we had, wasn't it, about one of our clients in a Dataverse lab. So I'd seen the first part of it, but obviously the orchestration side of it, I was just like, yeah, man, this is super powerful, and the amount of stuff you could extend off that, like creating user stories. I know maybe you can kind of like sync it up and start, flesh out a template from an ADO wiki or something like that, because that'd be a good, port of call for documentation. The possibilities are endless in terms of, literally a consultant's toolkit of like, just throw something in, see what we can do. The clicks of buttons, wow, that's phenomenal stuff. An absolute gold mine, and the way you can extend that, really excited. I think lots of people are excited to see what you both do with that over the course of this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if you want another one of those calls towards the end of the year going, do you remember Just Ask It? Well, here's Just Ask It some more.
Just tell it.
And off we go.
Just tell it.
Interesting.
Here's oi.
Oi, you! No! There's actually, so there's an issue raised on our GitHub for Just Ask It, and it was raised by Mark Smith, and it has this really interesting request. And me and John did actually talk to Mark about it, and I've taken it away. So I was talking about the prompt orchestration, and I also mentioned about flow orchestration as well. Actually, if you start to feed in the name of a customer, you could have a Bing search component actually go off and find news articles about the customer, summarize those articles, and start to identify areas of pain points within the business.
Nuts. Oh,
Yeah,
mate.
very nice.
There's people that might hear that and think, oh, that's really scary. I hear that kind of thing, but oh, wicked. Like, I think with creative people, your minds can go off on so many tangents. Go, well, with that little nugget or that suggestion, there's so many different things we could do with that.
No, definitely. But this is the thing. You say it's scary, but is this not what we would have done as a consultant anyway?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It just speeds that process up.
Yeah,
that's it. That's it.
But the flip side of that is, it probably, and this is where, going back to that conversation we had right at the beginning of the show about data and security and integrity, it also makes it easier for spoofers to go and use an AI model to go and get data from a company, find the CEO and their email address on a About Us page, and then go start sending them spam emails and phishing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, there's two sides to every single coin, isn't there? And I'm making sure that these AI tools are super powerful. Let's make sure they're administered well, they're secure, and all the underlying data is using is well managed, so the outputs aren't going to cause anyone any, technological harm in any kind of way. So there's both sides of the coin. I'm really excited by what all these things are going to bring for all of us as developers and consultants and whatever else. But yeah, I can understand some people's apprehension of like, oh, let's make sure we're good before we kind of, let the horse bolt out the gates, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But it's difficult, isn't it? Because once the cat's out the bag with technology, it then it is open for abuse, right? I mean, look at
absolutely right, and that won't change. Whatever then goes and supersedes AI, it'll be something else.
Look at auto dialers, right? So scammers have used auto dialers for years to ring people up randomly with a predefined message to try and bind some sort of pyramid scheme. There's scam that gets distributed by post. Does that mean post is bad? No.
Well, I mean, it's Royal Mail, so it ain't gonna be perfect.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. I'm hoping this year again we start seeing a turn in these opinions of AI is good, not AI is something to be afraid of. And that demo you showed is a pure example of that, how it can, there's from the Copilot Connection podcast, well said from Kevin and Zoe, of like, it's not autopilot, it's Copilot. It's to help you do things quicker so you can then do other things that might be more fun or other things on your to-do list that you never get a chance to do. Embrace it because it's some really cool stuff, right? So
yeah.
I'm hoping that opinion change a little, people will become a little bit less scared about AI and Copilot this year, because it's not here to take your jobs, as we well know. It's here to make them better. And like, if I was given a toolkit like that to start a project on, I wouldn't only use it, but I'll be knocking on your door with 100 million requests and going, oh, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Because I want to be able to speed things up. Because, and people have been using AI for years. Most houses have got Alexa.
Yeah.
And, I remember something I used to play FIFA Ultimate Team, right? This is how sad I am. About, 10 years ago, you could get those emulators on your screen that kind of record where you're going, so you can just leave it running. It would like click to bid on players.
Yeah.
These are all kind of like intelligence engines that can do cool stuff. And that was 10 years ago. Things are going to evolve, aren't they? So get on it.
You can find Craig White, an Ecosystem Enablement Architect at A&S Group, on LinkedIn, X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, and lurking in the Power Platform forum when he gets time, of course, he's not building Lego kits. Or you can read his fantastic Magenta blog at platformsofpower.net. Music for today's show was provided by Ken Like Fit. You can find his music on Spotify, links in the show notes. This has been Sprint Zero, and we've been John Russell. Say goodbye, John.
See you later.
Craig White. Say goodbye, Craig.
Goodbye, Craig.
And I'm Mike Gowland. See you next time.